Check out my compost tote here that I've done multiple videos on. Do you see what I see? Now you know all about this. This is how I do my composting. I don't get any of those fancy doodads. Just a simple tote. You can get them at the store for like $5 to $7. You can go to a thrift store. A lot of times I see them for $2 or $3. And you can get smaller ones or bigger ones. And look at this. When I dump the kitchen scraps in, if there's any tomato seeds or plant seeds, they grow. But that's not what I want to talk about today. I have the video up where you can look if you're interested and set it up right. And yes, I do cheese, I do dairy, I even do meat. So many of you have said, you can't do that. Well, I have people, subscribers, that are burying their chickens when their chicken passes away. And you know, the old school of burying your pet in your yard? Think about it. Now, this is a pepper. This came, the seeds, from a tiny little red pepper, and it's being supersized due to the plant food, the fertilizer that's coming out of the tote that I'm composting in. But again, this is not what I want to talk about today. I'm so excited that when I finished the other video yesterday, I was totally amazed. And remember, everything coming out of there is so rich, not just for us to garden, but for the wildlife around us. And you're going, what? How was that? Well, you know, when I moved it, I finished up and wrapped up my video, Zoe and I. We went in and rendered it and put it up on YouTube. I had told you that I can make this little corner into a bird sanctuary, and I didn't know how long it would take. Well, by the time I uploaded to YouTube, I had already turned this into a bird sanctuary, and I haven't even done anything yet. Those little insects that are flying out that are doing a great job if you don't have earthworms. Well, look what happened when I walked away. I came back and looked at my camera. That is a yellow-rumped warbler. I rarely see them on my deck, but that little bird flew by and thought, what in the world is going on? I see things. I was ecstatic. This little bird has given me such hope for all the birds that visit all of our gardens around here. This is a total win-win. We're not going to throw away our kitchen scraps or our leaves or anything. We shouldn't, because that's the best soil in the world for us to grow in, whether it's vegetable plants or even flowers. You throw it in a container like this and let nature break it down. If you've got earthworms, throw them in. But if not, you saw the holes on the side. I've got the whole setup video you can go check out. You'll have fruit flies come into those holes. And look what happens when you leave the lid open. Now remember, I close it mainly because I don't want rodents or anything like that getting into it. I don't want Zoe getting into it. So I put a lid on. You can get these totes with lock lids if you need to, so keep that in mind. But look at this. That bird hung around for a long time. And he looked around, and he wasn't just looking. If you look closely, he is picking all the fruit flies that are coming out of there. And he's having a feast. Then the hummingbirds showed up. And I learned something which I knew but never really gave it a lot of thought, and we'll see that in a minute too. Notice he's gone up to the plant up there with the flowers. That's called hummingbird's lunch. It's Kufia. It's a beautiful plant that grows flowers for me almost all year. Well, they don't eat flowers, the yellow-rump warblers. They're really not interested in that. They eat insects. And it dawned on me afterwards what was going on. Why was he constantly going in there? Look at him. He's not picking at the flowers. He's looking at flowers and snapping around. His beak is going wild. I know you're screaming already, some of you, and you're saying, I know what he's doing. I know what he's doing. You know, it took me a few minutes to realize what he was doing until I saw the hummingbirds start to fight over that plant. Not only were the hummingbirds just coming in for the feeder, but they were coming in for something else. We're going to talk about that in a second again. And in the meantime, that yellow-rump warbler is going to all the containers. Normally, they go in there looking for any little insect they can find, but they don't usually hang around that long. They go in there, walk through, grab an insect or two, or leave. But this guy, he was hanging around. Can you imagine when spring comes and they're feeding babies? Oh my gosh, my deck's going to be loaded with these beautiful songbirds coming in. Just gorgeous. We can compost our kitchen scraps, our dead leaves from the plants, and do whatever we want in there. And in the meantime, we've got insects, part of nature, that is doing a good thing. It's beneficial for us. beneficial for nature that's going to feed our birds. Birds that really do struggle to come in and find the proper food. But then the hummingbirds go, what are the hummingbirds doing? He's zipping around. He's zipping around collecting the fruit flies in the air. He's not going to really go inside the tote like the other birds will, but he's going to zip around and catch them in mid-flight. Where the warblers and the songbirds are going to go and get them right where they are. And look at the hummingbird. They feed on those flowers for nectar and pollen. But you know what else they're feeding on, I found out? When I started really observing this? Fruit flies. When the fruit flies go in there into our tote and lay their eggs, and the maggots, little tiny little speck of little worms that are maggots, start feeding away and breaking down everything in there, which we want it to break down. Well, when the flies are done, they go back up, and they just so happens, your little fruit flies, also known as vinegar flies, they go into flowers. They are attracted to pollen and nectar as well. They're not really considered a pollinator because they're so tiny. But guess who can feast on nectar as well as pollen and now protein insects? The hummingbirds. They are going to be looking in all those plants that are around there. They're going to check that flower out, and they're going to find not only the nectar and pollen they're looking for, but they're going to find insects. Because remember, our hummingbirds that we're all helping to survive and feed and give them nectar, that doesn't have protein. They get their protein from insects, and they do have to look all over. Well, now they don't have to look too far. They can start coming to the flowers that I sit there. Look at the second one came in, and they're going to fight over that. This is not just nectar and pollen. This is now their protein they need, and they don't have to look in the spider webs. Those little fruit flies are flying straight up to those flowers, because it just so happens those are the only flowers I've got there. And they can hang out trying to get some nectar or pollen from the flower. In the meantime, poor little fruit flies, there's so many of them, are being gobbled up by the hummingbirds. And watch closely. See how they're darting around? They're eating fruit flies. This is a total win-win. I am absolutely going to set up more than I've got. Right now I've got 2 of these set up, but I plan to have about 10. Because when I go through my garden and I forage, I am going to put all the leaves and kitchen scraps in there. And if you want to put something weighty on top, you can. You can put a couple flower pots on top. This will keep out any possums or something that might try to push it up. Remember, you can get locking handles if you want on some of these totes. They come in all different styles. But it was raining. It rained all night. And I do close it at night because I don't want rodents to come in. Rodents are attracted to the meat and the dairy and different products we put in there. But if they can't get to it, they can't get to it. In the meantime, it breaks down so fast. You saw that cheese disappeared really quick. Now I'm kind of moving the cardboard around so the little insects, the fruit flies that are underneath, can start to fly around and the other birds can get them. And then it started to rain again. And though rain is okay, I don't want it to get too wet in there because I don't want it to be like a bog. Because remember, our earthworms, all our fruit fly maggots, they need wet, damp soil, but they don't want it over wet. So sometimes you want to close it. Remember, these birds feed whether it's raining or not. The hummingbirds, all the birds, they have to eat. And hummingbirds, it's more important for them than anything because they can't wait. They still have to feed, and they have to eat every 15 minutes. So when it starts raining too much, Gary's on duty to go ahead and close it up. Oh, how did I get the dry part? Which is opening it when it's ready, and then Gary gets the wet part. Well, he didn't question it. I say, hey, you can close it when it starts to rain. But I do open it in the morning if the weather's nice. It's perfect for everything to break down. And when it's raining too much, go ahead and put the lid on it. You can stick some fancy things in there. I put a little hummingbird decor in there when I open it, in case a hummingbird wants to land on it, and maybe it's for looks for me. Put the lid on, because your insect eaters can go deep into trees right now where the insects are hiding to try to get away from the rain. They know where to find the insects. So it works out really good. And heck, it stopped raining. I opened it up again. Looked, yep, those insects are still there. And now I'm going to leave it open so those wonderful songbirds, our warblers, can come back and feast on all the little flies and even the maggots when they see them in there. And they'll be able to eat all the food they need, and they don't have to look so hard. Look at him, just picking away. I am so excited. If you've got songbirds, and I'm sure you've got insect eaters, Bring them to your garden, because when he's through there, there's no insects on the plants around there. They'll eat up the insects in your garden, and you don't have to use any pesticides. We do not. So with that, have a wonderful day, and don't forget to eat what you grow. Bye-bye.